Hello, my name is Emily Carter, and I never believed a single flight could make me question if my son and I would land alive. It was supposed to be simple, London to Dubai, just me and my 7-year-old, Liam. I was running on 2 hours of sleep and bad coffee. I hoped the hum of the engines would calm him down. When he'd boarded, I noticed the flight attendant checked his ticket twice and hesitated before letting him pass. From the moment we took off, the air felt heavy, like the cabin was holding its breath. The crew's smiles looked rehearsed. Maybe it was just my nerves, maybe not. A baby cried somewhere behind us, sharp, sudden, and for a moment, the entire cabin went silent. Liam kept kicking the seat in front of him, a steady, innocent rhythm that made the man ahead of us turn his head slightly every few minutes. I mumbled an apology the first time, the second time, too. By the third, I could feel his patience thinning. When he finally turned around fully, I saw his face for the first time. He looked ordinary, mid-40s, clean-shaven, sharp jawline, polite eyes. But when he turned around, something about him didn't fit, like a man pretending to be ordinary. "I don't mind the kicking," he said quietly. "Kids kick seats because they can. Some people grow up and still look for ways to kick back, just quieter ones." I smiled awkwardly, unsure how to respond. Liam stopped for a few seconds, sensing the attention, but soon started again. Light taps this time, not kicks. The man didn't turn back around. He just said, without looking at us, "Funny thing, control. Most people don't notice when they lose it." There was a small tremor in his voice. Not anger, more like he was remembering something he'd rather forget. I tried to brush it off, glancing at the window, pretending to check the weather outside. But the conversation had left an aftertaste, the kind that lingers in your throat long after the words fade. A faint clink of bottles snapped me back. The flight attendant smiled, but her eyes flicked toward him like she knew something I didn't. In the oval reflection of the window, I saw him again, not watching a movie, not reading, just staring forward, motionless. His lips moved faintly. I thought I heard the word altitude, or maybe atonement. I told myself I was imagining it. I turned away, pretending not to notice. For a while, everything was peaceful. I almost let my guard down. That was my mistake. The seatbelt sign blinked softly above us. A baby laughed somewhere. For a second, everything felt normal again. The engines hummed louder, or maybe it just felt that way. Somewhere ahead, I heard a faint metallic clink, like a latch being tested. The soft click of a seatbelt unbuckling cut through the cabin noise. He stood up, calm, composed, and walked toward the cockpit. He didn't look back. He didn't hesitate. And that was the moment everything started to unravel. What he did next made sure that the flight was never spoken of again. The click of his seatbelt still echoed in my head, a sound too small to mean anything, too heavy to forget. Hale stood up slowly, smoothing his jacket as if he were about to give a presentation, not walk into a restricted cockpit midair. No one noticed at first. The cabin lights dimmed, soft and golden. The engines hummed through the silence that followed him down the aisle. Liam leaned forward, craning to see where the nice man had gone. "Mom, where's he going?" he whispered. "Maybe the restroom," I said, though we both knew the lavatories were the other way. A flight attendant pushed a drink cart into the aisle, paused, and her expression flickered, a professional smile that faltered just enough to show what she was really thinking. She only nodded, stepping aside. He didn't look back. The faint metallic click of the cockpit lock sounded louder than it should have. The door opened, closed, and then the world settled again. No one reacted. The hum of conversation returned. Somewhere behind us, a baby cried once and then fell silent. But something had shifted. Quiet, invisible, like the oxygen itself had slowed down. Liam tugged my sleeve. "Can I take off my seatbelt?" "Not yet," I murmured. I didn't want to sound afraid, but I was. Whatever normal felt like, it had left the cabin when he did. Minutes passed. I turned to the window. Below, clouds glowed like silver fields. The engines murmured, steady and calm, as if the world inside that cockpit wasn't changing course. Then the intercom crackled. Hale's voice. Calm, controlled. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your pilot speaking." My stomach turned cold. He paused, deliberate. "We're experiencing a minor systems recalibration. Nothing to worry about. Please remain seated." Too slow, too careful. He sounded like someone holding something just out of sight. The attendants exchanged glances. One picked up the interphone, pressed a button, and waited. No answer. Her knuckles whitened around the receiver. Liam fidgeted again. "Can I play my game now?" "Not now, sweetheart," I said, trying to sound calm. He swung his legs. The seat back thudded against mine. Once, twice. I almost told him to stop, but my eyes stayed fixed on the cockpit door. The galley curtain moved. Just a slight sway, as if someone brushed past. Then stillness. The same attendant began walking the aisle, pretending to check seatbelts. Her smile was gone. She reached the front, pressed the intercom again. Still nothing. She turned, met my eyes. A silent question passed between us. Then the lights flickered, once and again. A few passengers murmured. Someone laughed nervously. The baby stopped crying. The engines kept their rhythm, but the tone had changed. Deeper, slower. My stomach noticed it before my ears did. "Mom, are we landing?" Liam asked. "No," I said. "It's too soon." I reached for the call button, but before I could press it, the intercom hissed. Under the static, faint breathing. Then Hale's voice again, smoother now. "Everything's fine," he said. "We'll be adjusting our altitude slightly. Please stay calm." Adjusting our altitude. My pulse jumped. I'd heard that phrase before, right before the footage cut to black in crash documentaries. At the front, one attendant whispered to another. The cockpit handle didn't move, locked. The fear spread slowly, like smoke. "Excuse me," someone called. "What's going on?" No answer. Outside, the stars blurred. Inside, every breath felt counted. Liam's small hand found mine. "Mom?" I squeezed it. "It's okay." It wasn't. Through the cockpit glass, a shadow shifted, just a shape, watching us. Then came the sound I'll never forget, a muffled knock. From inside the cockpit, the attendants froze. One pressed her ear to the door, her face drained. She mouthed two words, "Not the captain." The intercom hissed again, faint breath beneath static. Then, "I'd like to tell you a story," Hale said, "about a flight that never reached its destination." The cabin went silent. Even the baby stopped making noise, as if the whole plane held its breath to listen. Hale's voice, still calm, filled the intercom. Once upon a time, a pilot trusted the wrong person. He thought loyalty meant safety, but he learned, too late, that sometimes loyalty is a weapon. A few passengers laughed nervously, expecting the kind of story captains tell to distract from turbulence. But this wasn't that voice. There was no warmth in it, no reassurance, just control. "Is this a joke?" A man near the emergency exit asked, half standing. "Someone tell him to cut the crap." The attendants didn't answer. One of them, the younger one with the neat bun, was trembling so badly she dropped a tray of cups. The sound shattered the illusion of normal. The lights dimmed again. Only the reading lamps stayed on, scattering small circles of white over frightened faces. I held Liam tighter. His small shoulders were pressed into my chest, heartbeat steady against my panic. He whispered, "Mom, he sounds mean." "I know," I said softly. "Just don't be scared." But I was, because that voice, measured and clean, wasn't one of panic or madness. It was deliberate, and deliberate meant dangerous. Another voice broke in behind me, the man from row 12. "Hey, we need to get in there." He pointed toward the cockpit door. The attendant blocked his path. "Sir, please sit down." Her voice cracked on the last word. I said, "Sit down." It wasn't just fear now. It was authority, desperate, rehearsed authority. He hesitated. Then Saturday, the intercom popped again. Hale spoke like a teacher reading from a script. This flight was supposed to land in Lisbon, beautiful city. I once promised someone I'd take her there, but she never made it that far. None of them did. The words dropped into silence, heavy and precise. Someone whispered, "What is he talking about?" The attendant who'd pressed her ear to the door whispered back, "The captain's not responding, neither is the first officer." My throat tightened. "You mean he?" She shook her head. "Please, stay calm." But calm didn't exist anymore. The cabin lights flickered again, And for a moment, everything went black. Just a breath of darkness, long enough for every passenger to imagine the worst. When the lights returned, the first thing I saw was Hale's reflection in the cockpit glass, faint but unmistakable. His face wasn't visible, but I could see his hand moving across the controls. The plane tilted slightly, almost gently, like a sigh. The altitude display on the cabin screen started to change. Someone gasped. Everyone else just watched. 38,000 feet. 36,000. 33,000. Someone screamed. "Sit down," the lead attendant shouted. "Everyone stay seated." But her voice was breaking, shaking so much it barely carried past the first few rows. Hale's voice returned, this time quieter. Forgiveness, that's all I ever wanted from them. A pause. There's a certain peace in falling. Gravity doesn't ask questions. It just takes you where you were meant to go. Liam whimpered. "Mom, why is he saying that?" I couldn't answer. I could barely breathe. My fingers dug into the armrest, white-knuckled. The engines hummed lower, the sound vibrating through the floor like a pulse. The man from row 12 jumped up again. "I'm not dying up here!" He ran toward the cockpit. The attendant reached for him, missed. He slammed his shoulder into the cockpit door once, twice, and the whole cabin gasped when it didn't budge. He hit it again. "Open it!" The intercom hissed, then Hale's voice. "You shouldn't knock on a coffin door." The man froze. So did everyone else. Then, from behind the door, a second voice, weak, strained. "Help me!" Static swallowed the rest. The attendant stumbled backward. "That was the captain," she whispered. "He's alive." The man hit the door again, shouting. 2 other passengers joined him. Someone yelled, "Find something to break it!" I pulled Liam closer, shielding his face. The plane shook, just once, a deep vibration that rattled the overhead bins. A few bags fell, people screamed. Then, without warning, Hale's voice softened. "I never meant for this to happen the first time," he said. "But forgiveness doesn't come from altitude, it comes from endings." He paused. The intercom clicked off. For a few seconds, all we heard was the hollow hum of dissent. 29,000, 27,000, 25,000. The attendants were crying now, but still pretending to give instructions. "Please stay seated. Keep your seatbelts fastened." Their voices were small, mechanical, like they were repeating words they no longer believed. Liam lifted his head. "Mom, are we gonna crash?" "No," I lead. The man from row 12 turned, wild-eyed. "We have to do something. He's killing us." Someone shouted, "Use the fire extinguisher, the hinge." The attendant hesitated, then nodded, pulling one from the galley. The man swung it hard against the lock. Sparks jumped. Again, again. Each hit felt like hope clawing through steel. And then, a faint metallic click. The door moved an inch. The man reached for it, but Hale was faster. The sound that followed was sharp and final, like metal snapping shut. The intercom hissed with sudden noise, a single word cutting through static. "Sit!" The voice wasn't calm anymore. It was a command. He'd overridden the manual release. The man stumbled back, shaking. He locked it again, from the inside. And that's when I realized the danger wasn't outside the cockpit. It was sitting in it. He was talking about us. For a second, I couldn't feel my hands. The air thickened, pressed against my chest. Every sound in the cabin felt amplified. A cough, a zipper, the faint hum of the vents. Everyone was still, listening to a voice we couldn't see. "Row 14, Hale said again, quieter this time. "You don't remember, do you?" The cabin screens flickered, and through the static, a face almost appeared. Maybe a reflection, nothing. Then the words dissolved back into white noise. I looked down. Liam's shoes were pressed against the seat in front of him. The same rhythm, the same seat number. "Row 14. My mouth went dry. I wanted to speak, to tell myself it was a coincidence, that he couldn't possibly mean us, but something in his tone, calm, measured, certain, made it impossible to believe that. A smell hit me suddenly, stale coffee and jet fuel. For a moment I saw sunlight slanting across another aisle, a woman laughing, a laugh that sounded like mine. Then it was gone. Just the cabin, shaking lightly as if the plane itself had held its breath. Liam whispered, "Mom, what's happening?" "I don't know, baby. Just stay close." Hale's voice came back, softer now, but it filled every inch of space. "She thought I'd forget," he said. "That time would dull it, but the mind, it keeps its own logbook." The words sank in like a weight. The passengers started murmuring, restless now. One man stood, shouted something toward the cockpit, but his voice broke halfway through. He sat back down. The attendant nearest to me was trembling. Her hands clutched the jump seat strap like a lifeline. I met her eyes. She mouthed something. "Why us?" But I had no answer. Then the engines changed pitch. Not a drop yet, but a shift, like tension tightening inside metal. "Emily," Hale said. "My name." Every head turned toward me. I didn't move. I couldn't. The sound of my name coming from his mouth felt wrong, like hearing it through water. "How do you know my name?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away, just static. Then, Lisbon wasn't the end. It was the rehearsal. A silence spread. The flight attendants were frozen now. Someone started crying softly behind me. The pilot's door light blinked red, locked. Then, for just a moment, there was quiet. The kind that comes before something breaks. No alarms, no screams, just breathing, waiting, and then the plane tilted. Not sharply, just enough that your body knew before your brain did. A collective gasp swept the cabin. Overhead bins rattled, a bottle rolled down the aisle. I clutched Liam's arm, held him to my chest. My heartbeat drowned out everything else. On the intercom, Hale exhaled slowly, almost peacefully. "There's a certain grace," he said, "in letting go." The cabin lights dimmed. Outside the windows, clouds stretched in all directions, white, endless, indifferent. Inside, people began to pray, to bargain, to whisper names. I wanted to scream at him, to beg, to understand. But something in his calmness told me this wasn't about chaos. It was about control. And somehow, we were part of it. The screens flickered one last time. The static cleared just enough to show the words. Everything repeats until it's remembered. Then the cabin dropped. The drop wasn't sudden. It was like falling asleep too fast. Your body realizes it before your mind does. The pressure in your chest, the hollow in your stomach. Someone screamed, someone prayed. Not silence, just that heavy quiet where even sound is afraid to exist. The cabin lights flickered back, dim and trembling. Outside, clouds stretched endlessly and were dark. Inside, passengers clung to each other, breathed shallow, eyes wide. Liam's small hand found mine, warm, steady, trembling just a little. "Mom," he whispered. I swallowed. "Just stay close, baby." Hale's voice came again, soft, measured, almost tired. "Funny thing about falling," he said. "People think it's the ground that kills you. It's not. It's the moment you realize you can't stop." I tried to speak, to demand an answer. My throat tightened. He wasn't addressing us. He was talking to himself. A memory hit Lisbon. Another flight. A laughing child kicking the back of a seat. My younger self ignoring a man who tried to teach control, thinking it was trivial. I looked away when it mattered most. The engines hummed, vibrating through my chest. The plane shuddered slightly. Not a crash, but enough to remind everyone it could be. Hale's calm voice filled the cabin again. "There's a certain grace in letting go," he said. The cabin lights dimmed further. Shadows stretched along faces, frozen in fear. I unbuckled, instinctively, gripping Liam. His pulse was fast but steady. A flight attendant tried to stop me, whispering, "Please, stay seated." I didn't answer. My legs moved on their own. The cockpit door cracked open, just enough to see him. Hale's shadow moved across the controls, calm, precise, intentional. "Please," I said. My voice trembled. "You don't have to do this." "It's already done," he said softly. Funny thing, Emily, sometimes control means letting go. The engines roared. The cabin lurched. Outside, clouds blurred into streaks of light and dark. It didn't feel like flying anymore. It felt like falling. Inside, we held each other. Liam's hand in mine, a tiny anchor in chaos. I felt guilt sharpen. I had looked away before. This time, I wouldn't. Then, The plane steadied, barely. Not landing, not crashing, just a suspended, fragile balance. The monitors flickered one last time. Words appeared. Everything repeats until it's remembered. The world held its breath. When I opened my eyes, we were on the ground. Smoke and fog surrounded the broken plane. Rescue lights cut through the haze. Liam was alive. I pulled him close, holding him tight. Later in the hospital, I learned the cockpit was empty. The pilot's log opens to a single page, and written across it, the same words from the screens. Everything repeats until it's remembered. I don't fly anymore, but sometimes, in the middle of the night, I hear the hum of engines outside my window. And I remember the drop, the calm voice, the knowledge that some stories don't end. They circle, waiting to be remembered. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and quiet panic. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, a constant reminder that life continued around me while I felt suspended. Liam slept in a small cot beside my bed, a thin blanket covering him, chest rising and falling steadily. I watched, trying to absorb what was alive. That alone felt unreal. Hale's shadow lingered in my mind, long after the wreckage was cleared. The words, "Everything repeats until it's remembered," echoed in every corner of my memory. The reporters came, flashing cameras, questions I couldn't answer, details I didn't want to recount. I stayed silent. Liam needed me. The rest could wait. At night, I began dreaming. Not about the crash, not about the plane, but about rows of seats, empty rows, faces blurred but familiar, children kicking, mothers laughing. Men in calm gray uniforms were repeating the same lesson I had ignored. Each dream ended the same way. A click of a seatbelt, the hum of an engine, a whisper in my ear, control. I tried to tell myself it was over, that we were safe. But even when my eyes opened in daylight, the world felt slightly off, like it was waiting for something unresolved. I started keeping a small notebook. Every sound, every sudden movement, every flash of memory, I wrote it down. It wasn't for anyone else. It was to remind myself, to remember. Because the thing about Hale, about that flight, was that it didn't end on the ground. It didn't end with survival. It circled, always circling until you faced it. Weeks passed, months, the news cycle moved on, airlines reassured passengers, life supposedly returned to normal, but I didn't. I felt the hum before any plane landed, before any engine roared, before a child's foot pressed against a seatback. My stomach would tighten, my pulse would quicken. I started noticing patterns, faces, voices, even gestures that felt familiar but impossible. People in airports seemed to echo someone from Lisbon. Seats that reminded me of row 14. The smallest motion, a child's laughter, a glance, a whisper, would trigger the memory, the warning, the lesson I never fully absorbed. Liam grew quieter. He looked to me more often, as if sensing my tension, but he never asked why. I wasn't ready to explain, not yet. Some nights, I hear Hale's voice in my dreams, calm, instructive, almost kind. Remember, Emily, control matters, memory matters. And I do. I remember everything, but memory isn't comfort. It's a tether, a loop, a shadow that follows. I realized one night, staring at the ceiling, that perhaps some stories don't just circle back. They wait patiently for the right moment to make you feel them again. And maybe some lessons aren't learned in a single flight. Years passed. The world moved on. Airlines implemented new safety protocols. Children outgrew the seat-kicking phase. Life returned to its mundane rhythm for everyone else. But not for me, not for Liam. Sometimes at night I hear it, a faint hum, a soft click, the whisper of a voice. I tell myself it's just my memory, that the engines outside aren't real, the plane is gone. But I know better. I see it in reflections, in the curve of a metal railing, in the angle of a passing commuter jet. Row 14, a kicking child, a calm man. The lesson repeats itself silently, invisibly, waiting for recognition. I thought I understood control. I thought I'd face the moment where power and consequence collided. I was wrong. Some nights I hold Liam close and imagine Hale's eyes in the cockpit, calm, watching, calculating, not anger, not hatred, just observation. A reminder that memory never truly sleeps. And then I realize the story doesn't end with survival. It ends with awareness. I close my eyes and breathe. The engines hum faintly, almost soothing. Almost, because somewhere, always, the plane is waiting. And so are the lessons, until they're remembered. Again, even after the wreckage cleared, even after the sirens faded, I couldn't shake the feeling that Hale's words weren't just for that flight. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I hear it. The faint hum of engines, the soft click of a seatbelt, the whisper of a voice repeating truths no one else remembers. I hold Liam a little tighter, though I know it won't stop what's coming. Small, breathing, safe. He sleeps beside me. But I know some moments, some stories don't end with survival. They wait, patient, watching, ready to circle back until they're remembered again.